Welcome to Women in Mobility, an initiative by the Mobility Outlook team. Today, we have with us someone who's not just enabling financing of electric vehicles in semi urban and rural parts of India, but at the same time, this individual is also enabling financial inclusion for people, for Indians who otherwise might find it very difficult to get loans or access to credit from national banks of the country. Please allow me to welcome Nehal Gupta, Director, AMU Leasing. Well, she has several degrees in creative writing. From marketing, creative writing, you've been part of a company which supplies steel pellets to a lot of steel makers and other institutions. Into EV financing, also the part about creative writing and marketing to EV financing. What enabled the move?
Right. Thank you so much for having me here. And I think we come from multiple generations of entrepreneurship within my family, and we come from multiple generations of businesses. So, hopping around different industries, I think, has always been part of the DNA for from where I belong from. And I did study supply chain management and marketing in college, but that I think also gave me a perspective on how to run a business. I went to a business school, so a lot of our classes, a lot of our education was about holistically learning about businesses and entrepreneurship as a whole. And then I worked in the US for a year as a marketing communication specialist, which also then helped me understand how the communications between a business and different vendors, different stakeholders, to clients, to customers, how that entire ecosystem works. So that gave me a very good perspective on, and a very different perspective on what my family would have otherwise been able to teach me through their experiences of entrepreneurship. So, yeah, I think being part of different things, being able to study different things, gives you a better perspective overall on things. And how electric vehicles started was because we had tried everything from steel to real estate to PET bottle manufacturing within our family. And I think it was time for the next generation to talk about sustainability, to talk about future, to talk about the impact now. Because, the world that we're evolving in now is super fast, super digitized. So we wanted to take a leap into that. And we were very fascinated by electric vehicles since the start, since the concept had begun. We personally own an EV ourselves. So we wanted to then understand what the electric mobility segment is about. Then COVID struck in 2020 and gave us a lot of time to introspect, figure out different business models that we could work with, connected with a lot of different people. And right after I came back, we had almost a platform ready to give out our first loan, to give out our first 10, 50 loans. So we did that as part of the soft concept, pilot concept. And post COVID, I think November last year onwards, we began aggressively to understand the market, to start, venturing out into more geographies. Did that, and yeah. So figured that there's a lot of potential. Figured we could make a lot of impact, a lot of sustainable impact, a lot of financial inclusion impact, like you mentioned, and that was great. I think that was a great boost. Saw a lot of growth, scope. Met with customers, met with a lot of satisfied customers, and that just pushed us to move forward with it.
In a way, you're helping the government in two ways. You're helping the vision of the government to see more EVs on the road, and on the other hand, you're also enabling financial inclusion, right? But going to urban, semi-urban India and rural India, how tough is it for you being a woman?
Honestly, I think it's surprising, but it's not been as rough or tough that I thought it might be. The journey has not entirely been smooth, which is the journey for any entrepreneur. But I would like to classify myself as just an entrepreneur, not a woman entrepreneur, because then the biases and different things around it changes. So for me, the kind of people I've met, the customers I've met, the stakeholders I've met for my own work within the semi-rural, urban, rural, semi-urban areas, it's been fantastic. The kind of reception that we have received, the kind of warmth, the kind of acceptance from people, and the appreciation that someone not from like not who's not a man, who's not someone old, is entering a mobility space which is so predominantly men um, heavy and men dominated. So we have, our entire team has been very very happy about that, because we, that was one of the things, my, even my parents, even my family was apprehensive of that. You'll be having to go on a lot of different and hard routes getting into the sector and industry, but it's surprisingly been really good. It's been well, it's been received really well.
I mean, you sound very happy. Does that mean that the business outlook for you and for the entire financing industry, especially keeping, the target audience that you're serving, is
Yeah.
good?
Yeah, I think when you see the real impact happening, when my team personally goes and visits those small areas, small villages, small towns, people don't even have pakka homes. Half of those rickshaw drivers are living in kacha homes. So when we actually go visit, say hi, we're your financier, we're helping you out, the way they receive you is also so warm that that's when you see that you're making a real impact out of your business. And it's not just about making money sitting out of an office in an urban city, but the kind of impact that you're creating is actually happening in those tier 2, tier 3 cities. And that's very satisfying. And I think that's what drives the entire team. And that's the vision that we are very stuck on and want to achieve.
They say EV is a finally breaking ice. Do you agree to that statement? And how? I mean, what's your forecast for EV adoption in the geographies that you are serving at the moment?
So I think EV definitely is the next best alternative to our transportation currently. And any new industry that emerges in our economy goes through this metamorphosis. It suddenly surges, people are very interested in it, it becomes a hot market, and then it kind of saturates, and then people adopt it at a more mass level where there's not that much hype about it now, because the government has promoted it enough, people have adopted it enough. So I think we're in that transition of that surge phase where everyone's now talking about electric, and it's booming because it's just being introduced in the market. And once we see enough scalability, once we see enough ecosystem built around the industry, I think it's going to be treated like any normal industry, which is now a more advanced technology. Say from when you started from diesel to petrol to CNG, now to different other kinds of fuels, to now electric. So the entire switch to mobility, to electric mobility, will be a transition for the next, say, 5 to 7 years, and where we see a lot of growth, demand, and whoever can pick their place or mark their place in this transition will succeed, will survive. But again, I think then again there'll be better technologies coming out in the future. So we don't want to rely ourselves only on electric as a whole, but supporting the surge in this transition that's happening now.
If I can read between the words perfectly, am I correct to assume that there are challenges ahead? And if yes, what challenges do you see ahead in India's EV adoption race?
I think the large challenge that we foresee would be the simultaneous development of the ecosystem. You can develop the vehicles, you can find enablers who can finance, who can lease, who can take ownership of the vehicles, you can find drivers, but then you need to have enough charging infrastructure, you need to have enough ecosystem to sustain the vehicles, from servicing to communication to finding clients to bringing in awareness for the customers on how to drive an EV. So there are a lot of factors from government policies and regulations point of view, from technology point of view. So there's a lot that's just springing up and needs to be developed for people like us to be comfortable driving an EV wherever we want. The kind of adoption that we are supporting is happening in smaller towns. And for it to come to larger towns, for people like us to adopt, is a long journey. And it's going to take a while, and that requires support from all different fronts that I just mentioned. So I think that's the biggest challenge. But that's again with any other industry, right? Like if you're bringing in cell development in India, lithium ion cell development, for that you'll need enough ecosystem around it to prosper. So similar to any new industry coming in, I think it'll face similar challenges. But apart from that, I think it brings in a lot of stability and sustainable impact overall for the country. So that's great. And yeah.
So would you say for women who are into the mobility sector or who are trying to enter the mobility sector, would you say the challenges for them would be different than what they are for men and what they are for the government for EV adoption rates and all that?
I think depends on what kind of sector they are entering through. Um, uh, say I belong to the BFSI sector, so BFSI overall is quite advanced in the country now. I would say. I mean, our finance minister is a woman, so top to bottom, we don't find any spot where there's a dearth of women or there's not enough women interaction. And more women coming in now, I think it will not be challenging for sure. It will be easier from against those who had been in the industry from before them, right? So, uh, yeah, I think challenges point of view, I don't foresee too much. I think, but being able to penetrate the technical side of it from like a manufacturing point of view, from components point of view, from services point of view, from technology point of view, I don't foresee too many women jumping onto it now, but we do have a lot of emerging startups now built by women who are trying to understand the space better. But legacy companies are mostly predominantly men, like I said. Yeah.
So let me break the next question into two parts, right? One, you just spoke about some opportunities for women, right? So one, I would like you to highlight us on where do you see opportunities for women in the mobility sector? That's one. And the other one is where do you see government or how do you see government playing a role in bringing more women to the mobility ecosystem, the overall thing?
Right. So to answer your first question, I think the first segment that women can foray into, for which even the government is pushing for, is being drivers. So a lot of women drivers are now being encouraged to drive commercial vehicles, to drive three-wheelers, because those first are safer to drive. Electric vehicles are easier to drive, are safer to drive. Second, they're regulated by large entities. So your vehicle is tracked at all times. Women drivers have, I mean, all drivers have apps. They can communicate with their dealerships, with their customers at a regular basis. And these vehicles run on a very specific route, on a specific timeline. So if women are promoted to drive these vehicles, I think they can make an amazing earning out of this stream of income, where you're able to earn, say, about 30 to 40K a month just by, say, doing mid-mile, first-mile, or last-mile deliveries. When you're employed by corporates and you're running a vehicle that's much safer, that's not too technical to drive, so you don't need to take driving lessons before driving it because it's on a premeditated route. You go from point A to point B to point C and you are done. So, and women have historically been part of carrying goods for their house, fetching water from different places in their villages. So women are used to multitasking, women are used to doing that. So if they're being promoted to drive these vehicles, I think it's a fantastic way for the tier 2, tier 3 women to uplift themselves through electric mobility, one. Two, I think being in the back end, so there are a lot of corporates who are running vehicles in bulks, who need maintenance on these vehicles, who need management on these vehicles. So women who are employed more on the field, on the management of the vehicles, on employing the drivers, on making sure that the routes are taken properly. So the admin management side of it. Then third is financing. Financing is a big, big side. And us as a woman-led company are also trying to promote more women to join our company. So, overall bringing in women and making them interested in what electric mobility is, what the shift is about. If they're not aware, they will never generate their interests in this industry, compared to, especially now that you have e-commerce and so much digital stuff happening, it's very hard to pull a segment of women from there to, like, say, come to electric mobility, understand what EVs is about, understand what finance is about. So it's something we also struggle with on a regular basis, but I think having enough awareness channels really helps bring out those kind of women.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, taking lead from the government, what can the industry do to enable entry of more women into the ecosystem?
Right. I think to start with, what the government had also done is to earmark a certain percentage of your total, say, sales or your total targets, and earmarking a certain percentage for women in that. So say if Piaggio as a company is planning to sell 4,000 vehicles, earmark 1,500 just for women, which they did. Not just Piaggio, but a lot of large companies like Mahindra and others followed the league because I'm just going to take Delhi as an example. That you need auto permits to drive the autos in Delhi.
Right.
So those permits then are earmarked a specific amount just for women, where women can register themselves and start driving the vehicles. So initiatives like those, wherein you just create that space for women to come in. You can't make it competitive enough from the start. So you kind of have to give them the leeway that, okay, this is your pool. You begin driving. You see how it goes. And then we attract more women based on word of mouth, based on references. So that's how usually the government or larger companies are trying to promote this. And from the back end side, I think companies should take responsibility to hire more women. For roles that are generally taken up by men, I mean, why not try to bring in more women? I have 5 more women that I just hired last month, and it's been going great. The kind of ownership, accountability, responsibility they take, it's amazing. I think it's just you need a change in perspective and a shift in your thinking. That something that if I have a collection manager and he's talking to customers and collecting money for me, why can't a woman do that? Why do I need a man to do that? Just because we've always seen a man do it doesn't mean that it's only a man who can do it. So similar for drivers, for backend, for your tech partners, component partners, anything can be run by women that way.
Perfect. Was there any sense of fear in your mind the first time you went to let's say a tier 4 town to meet a dealer for EV financing? Was there any sense of fear in your mind?
Of course there was. I was fretting. I did not want to talk. I did not want to go. I felt out of place because I didn't know if I would be able to connect with those stakeholders. The way I'll talk, will they understand what I'm saying? Will they accept me there? But I think you can't be successful if you don't go out of your comfort zone. So which is what my team taught me, my parents taught me, that whatever makes you uncomfortable is your next step to success. So I just went in for it. And that's how you get into this whole ice-breaking thing and, make a mark on people that, okay, you can actually do it. Because otherwise, it's very easy for me to hire someone and go talk on my behalf. Why do I need to go? That's very doable.
Right.
But that's not something that I prefer personally. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm being able to talk to you today, that it gives me the confidence to do that. Yeah.
The reason I asked you this question is because there would be a lot of women out there who would be wanting to venture into the mobility field, but would have been facing the same sense of fear.
Yeah.
Right? Could you elaborate a little more on how they can overcome this fear and take the first step on the list?
I think just by doing it. There's no two ways about it. No amount of preparation, no amount of confidence can help you with that till you do it. So go do it, make mistakes, maybe not speak the right things in the first meeting, that's okay. Go make a mark, at least have a voice on the table. I think if you don't have a voice, if you don't have opinions, people will walk all over you. So have a voice, say some things, even if you're not saying the right things, ensure you say something so people know you exist and people know you have things to say. And the way you evolve, if you keep doing that, is amazing. Because you always do have the right things to say. If you have enough passion to think that you want to do it, then obviously you can do it. So, not holding yourself back and just taking small steps to meet 1 people, 2 people, 10 people, 100 people, and then it snowballs. Because your mind also gets acclimated that this is my job now, this is what I have to do, this is how I have to meet people, and it has to come from within. It can't be someone pushing you to do it just for you to go show your face. You actually have to care about your project and you have to go meet people, and you can only do it by doing it. Yeah.
Perfect. One last question, Nehal. What is Nehal Gupta's leadership style?
I think I'm a very hands-off person. So I don't like to control or micromanage. I am the kind to hire the right team for the right kind of skill sets I need, the kind of expertise I need, and then I let them do their magic. I'm not the kind of boss to go sit in people's cabins and check what they're doing. If it's time sensitive, if it's not. it's always performance driven and it's always hands off. I give you a set of targets, and I know the kind of people that I've hired will be able to complete those targets, and we do it in a very stipulated manner, in a time phase manner, and things get done. And you have to be respectful, you have to be humble, and I would listen to a peer and to my senior executive. So I don't discriminate in anyone's point of view. I mean, the best ideas have come from my customers from tier 3, tier 4 towns. So being able to be present, being able to listen to everyone, respectful, humble, and speak up. Speak your ideas up. And there have been times, because I'm younger and my executives are much older than I am, they have better ideas, they have more experience. So to not be egoistic and to be able to open up yourself to those people, I think, yeah, that's how I would define my leadership style.
Thank you, Nehal, for talking to us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.